The sting of betrayal. It's a physical thing. Like a shard of ice, sharp and jagged, lodged right in the center of your chest. You feel it with every breath, every heartbeat. It's a constant, aching reminder. You replay every moment, every conversation, every shared laugh, searching for the cracks you missed. The subtle shifts in their eyes, the pauses that stretched a little too long, the "I love you" that sounded just a little too rehearsed. You start to question your own sanity. Was it always like this? Did I imagine the warmth, the connection? The lies they told, not just the big ones, but the small, insidious ones, begin to unravel, leaving you raw and exposed. Julian. My Julian. The man I baked his favorite cookies for, the man I stayed up late listening to his work frustrations, the man I planned our future with. And Vivian, my boss, the woman who praised my work ethic, who talked about women supporting women, who I saw as a mentor. They tore my world apart with a casual cruelty that still makes me shudder. The humiliation. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the way they looked at me afterwards, like I was an inconvenience, a problem to be dealt with. The way Julian packed a suitcase with a few of my things, not even my favorites, and shoved it at me, like I was a stranger. You're being dramatic, Elara. We can talk about this later. Later? As if there was a later after this. As if the wounds they inflicted could ever heal. The feeling of being so utterly dismissed. Like my feelings, my dreams, my very existence didn't matter. Like I was a ghost in my own life. Like I was nothing. Like a used tissue, a discarded receipt, something to be thrown away without a second thought. That feeling of being thrown out like garbage, of being treated like you're less than human, is something I know many of you have sadly experienced. That cold, hollow feeling that settles in your bones, that makes you question everything you thought you knew. It's a pain that cuts deep, and leaves a scar that never truly fades. They saw me as the quiet one, the dependable wife, the efficient employee. You know the type. Always on time, always with a smile, never making waves. They saw the surface, the neatly pressed clothes, the polite nods. They didn't see the storm brewing beneath. They didn't know about my grandmother, Clara. A woman who built a tech empire from nothing, in a time when women were told to stay in the kitchen. She was a force of nature, a sharp mind wrapped in a soft voice. She sold that company years ago, for a sum that would make their heads spin. But she didn't blow it on fancy cars or designer handbags. She invested it wisely, and left it to me with one condition: keep it hidden, Elara. Trust no one. That money, that legacy was my secret weapon. A safety net I never thought I'd need, tucked away in offshore accounts, growing steadily. A secret born from a past I rarely spoke of. A past where I learned that vulnerability was a weakness, and trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. My grandmother, bless her soul, had seen the worst of people. She'd been betrayed, used, and underestimated. And she taught me, through her own hard-won experience, that the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. See, my childhood wasn't exactly a fairy tale. My dad, a charming con artist, always had a scheme brewing. My mom, bless her heart, was too blinded by love to see the red flags. They lost everything, multiple times. I learned early on that appearances can be deceiving, that smiles can hide daggers, and that promises are often empty. I swore I wouldn't repeat their mistakes. That I'd build my own security, my own fortress. And I did, brick by silent brick, using my grandmother's legacy as the foundation. Julian and Vivian? They thought I was naive. They thought I was just a woman playing house, climbing the corporate ladder slowly and steadily. They saw the quiet wife, the efficient employee, the woman who never asked for much. They didn't see the steel beneath the surface, the carefully guarded secrets, the resources they couldn't even dream of. They didn't know that I was playing a different game, a game they didn't even know existed. They thought they were manipulating me, but they were wrong. They were just waking a sleeping giant. It started with a text, a simple, "Can't wait to see you later, babe," from a number I didn't recognize. Then, the late-night work calls that smelled suspiciously of perfume. And finally, the lipstick stain, a vibrant crimson, on his pristine white shirt, a shade I never wore. It was like a slow-motion car crash, each piece of evidence slamming into me, harder and harder. The pieces fell into place, a horrifying puzzle I didn't want to solve, but couldn't ignore. The world went silent, like someone had hit the mute button on my life. I remember the cold slick tile of the bathroom floor, the way my hand shook, not with anger, but with a bone-deep chill. I confronted him, the words catching in my throat. "Who is she, Julian?" He didn't deny it. He just scoffed. Dismissed me like I was a hysterical child. "You're overreacting, Ilara. It was just a moment. A mistake." A mistake? A mistake that reeked of cheap hotel perfume and whispered lies? He had the audacity to say that. And then, as if I were the one in the wrong, he told me to leave. "You're making a scene. Just pack your things and go." He actually told me to leave my own home. The home I decorated. The home where we had our anniversary dinners. The home where we made plans for a future that now seemed like a cruel joke. He looked at me, not with remorse, but with a cold, hard indifference that made my blood run cold. It was like he was looking at a stranger, a nuisance he needed to get rid of. The gall of him. That's when something shifted. It wasn't the kind of anger that boils over, the kind that makes you scream and break things. It was a cold, quiet rage. A slow-burning fire that started in my gut and spread through my veins. They thought they'd stripped me bare, left me with nothing but the clothes on my back and the sting of their betrayal. They saw the tears, the shock, the vulnerability. They mistook my silence for weakness. But they didn't know. They didn't know about the offshore account, the one my grandmother insisted I set up years ago, just in case. The one with the kind of numbers that could make their jaws drop. Numbers that could buy and sell their entire little world a dozen times over. Numbers that could fund a revenge so sweet, it'd make their teeth ache. Or, numbers that could build a new life, a life where I called the shots, where I was the architect of my own destiny. They thought they'd kicked me to the curb, but they just handed me the keys to a kingdom they never knew existed. And let me tell you, I was about to start building. I walked out, head held high, a ghost in my own life. I let them think they'd won. I wanted to see how deep their deceit went. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment, the kind with thin walls and the smell of old cooking. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. A sanctuary. From there, I became a shadow watching, listening. I started to understand the real game they were playing. Julian, bless his heart, was always a sucker for the flashy life. He wanted the expensive watches, the fancy cars, the status. And Vivian? She craved power, the kind that came with rubbing elbows with the elite. I began to see the strings being pulled, the lies being woven. Little things at first. The way Julian's eyes darted when the CEO, Mr. Davenport, entered a room. The hushed conversations between Vivian and Davenport, always behind closed doors. The way Vivian's expensive new handbag seemed to magically appear, right after a private meeting with Davenport. I even started following them. Not like a crazy ex, but with a cool, calculated detachment. I'd sit in cafes, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching them through the window. I'd track their movements, their phone calls, their emails. I discovered Julian was gambling, a lot. He was neck-deep in debt, a fact he'd carefully concealed from me. It explained the sudden need for extra cash he'd been asking for, which I always refused. Vivian, on the other hand, was playing a dangerous game. She was desperate to climb the corporate ladder, and Davenport was dangling the keys to the penthouse suite. I saw the way Davenport touched her, a little too familiar, a little too possessive. The way he'd whisper in her ear, making her blush and stammer. I saw the fear in Julian's eyes, a fear he tried to mask with bravado. He was trapped, a puppet dancing to Davenport's tune. One night, I followed them to a private club, the kind where the champagne flowed like water and the secrets were traded like currency. I saw them together, Julian and Vivian, not in a passionate embrace, but in a tense negotiation. Davenport was there too, his eyes cold and calculating. He was the conductor, and they were his instruments, playing a symphony of deceit. I recorded everything. Their hushed conversations, their desperate pleas, their incriminating exchanges. I saw the fear, the desperation, the ugly truth of their arrangement. I knew then that they were just pawns in a much larger game. And I, Ilara, the quiet wife, the efficient employee, was about to become the queen. I was going to turn their carefully constructed world upside down, and watch them scramble for the pieces. I was going to expose the CEO, and show the world the true face of the people I trusted. I was going to make them pay, not with anger, but with cold, calculated precision. But then I found something far more disturbing. Something that twisted the knife even deeper. I wasn't just dealing with a simple affair. It was a twisted web of desperation and control. I discovered Julian was drowning in debt. Gambling debts. The kind that leave you owing people you don't want to meet in a dark alley. And the affair with Vivian? It wasn't some passionate fling. It was a cold, calculated transaction. The CEO, Mr. Davenport, he had the leverage. The threat of exposing Julian's debts. The potential for accidents that could happen to someone who owed the wrong people. Vivian, ambitious and vulnerable, was manipulated by Davenport. He promised her a fast track to the top of the company, if she played her part. I found out Julian had been getting those loans from people who were connected to the CEO. He was trapped, and the affair was the price of his freedom. Or what he thought was freedom. Mr. Davenport had files, recordings, evidence of Julian's reckless behavior. He had Julian exactly where he wanted him. It's not just about betrayal anymore. It's about survival. Julian, the man who kicked me out, was a puppet dancing to a dangerous tune. Vivian, the woman who stole my life, was a pawn in a game she didn't understand. And Mr. Davenport, the man who smiled at me in the office, was the puppeteer, pulling all the strings. Now I have to decide. Do I expose Mr. Davenport and bring down his whole empire, revealing the dark underbelly of the company I dedicated myself to? Do I save Julian from his own stupidity, even after he threw me away? Or do I let them all burn, watch their carefully constructed world crumble to ashes? Do I expose the fact that my husband had been forced into the situation, and that he was manipulated? Do I reveal that Vivian was also a victim? What choices would you make? What kind of justice is truly just? The game is far from over, and I hold all the cards, or at least, almost all of them. And the biggest question I have to ask myself is, can I save someone who didn't deserve to be saved in the first place? That's where my story pauses. I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Have you ever felt betrayed? What would you do in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more stories, and share it with anyone who needs to hear that they're not alone. Let's talk about this. Your comments might just change the ending.